ministry that her heart, she actually introduced me to it, so she introduced the ministry to the house. So it's unlikely that I'm going to ask Nicole, well, leave that and go and do this. But what I'm talking about, if you are just in a position of general leadership, you need to be ready to be moved. You know, if you're going to be part of the army, one thing about this book I've been reading about the Jesuits is they've got a couple of vows I might struggle with. Chastity, for a start. I think that's a bit of a struggle. Chastity, poverty, and obedience. Chastity, poverty, and obedience. And whatever the leader, in this case it was Ignatius Loyola who started it, but then they become devoted to the Pope. Whatever the Pope wanted, they did. Much of their work was anti-Reformation work, you know, so again, you could consider them one's enemy, you know, if you were a follower of the Reformists, which I think I don't have any enemies anymore, unless they want to be my enemy. They're not mine in my opinion. But the obedience is something that we culturally still struggle with. We still struggle in our heart, that true obedience. Remember when Paul had that dream, you know, come over and help us? He left the next morning. Couldn't it be great if we could have that kind of obedience? You know, we can't do it because we're married and we have houses and we have jobs, etc., etc. But at least have that attitude. Work towards that attitude. Very important. Okay, leaders, be ready to be moved. We must lead, feed, and read. Lead, feed, and read. But after the word read, put down there the word discernment. We had a wonderful example this week. We needed to move some young leaders. We needed to release a couple of the kids from the youth leadership and move them sideways to be part of the host team and be part of the kids cafe. So when I talked to the leadership of the youth about this, might as well say it. Obviously Esther's friends, Sarah and Grace, you know, they're her friends, so the emotional element of it is there. We don't deny that. We don't deny the emotion of leadership. How about that time when Paul spoke to the leaders of Ephesus, and then it says afterwards they got on their knees on the beach and wept because they knew they'd see him no more. Well, sorry guys, that's why I say shalom. Because I don't know if I'm coming or going. Because shalom's an important thing. You won't ever see me weep when my mother gets on the plane. I never know if I'll ever see my 93-year-old mother again. You'll never see me do that. It's just part of life. They come and they go. So, the beautiful thing out of what I'm saying here is the discernment is, Esther then suddenly said, you know, Bob said 2 weeks ago he thought that Sarah and Grace were going to begin to do something else. I should have listened to him and all that, but the point was, he, as the leader of the youth group, began to discern something. And that was excellent. I was thrilled when I heard about that. We should be that kind of reader. You must read the people you're leading. The Bible says a shepherd knows a righteous man knows the state of his flock. And like I've said before, many of the people that you read, when you're a leader, if you have to speak to somebody about their weaknesses so they can develop their weaknesses and overcome them, you can't speak to them too often when they're in the midst of it. Right. You know, and I wish that people would come and speak to me when they were feeling good. You know, come and say, Vaughan, what? Everything's great, man. What am I doing wrong? Because now you're strong enough to whack. I don't want to whack you while you're crying and make you cry again. Okay, I hope somebody got that. But anyway, now this is the next report. That was Hebrews 5:14, which talks about discernment. Hebrews 5:14 talks about discernment through reason of use, not the discerning of spirits. It talks about in 1 Corinthians 14. It's a whole other ball game. It's experience. Okay, here we go. My food is to do the will of him who sent me, and to finish his work. Finish his work. I've written this in such big print on my page, it really, and underlined it, it really, if you're going to be sustained in this day, when all kinds of pressure is going to come upon us, financially, emotionally, the whole moral fibre of our nation is going to deteriorate. It's going to deteriorate, and we're not going to have to cry about it because it's in the book. It's in the book. I don't know if anybody here honestly thinks the American dream is going to be restored. If you do, read Revelation. Just read how it all ends up. And so I just want to encourage you, you know, the moral fibre of our nation is so undermined. How can, you know, who's a good person talked about this is Rich Caliendo, because he teaches the 7th and 8th graders. He knows exactly what the next generation is going to be like. He's with them every day. And he's smiling and planning on retiring. Think about that. But anyway, if that was a secret, Lord, I am so sorry. I don't think it was. But my point is, the moral fibre of our nation is so undermined that the only way we're going to get through is if we have something far stronger to sustain us. My food is to do the will of Him who sent me and to finish His work. Finish it. If you start something, get it done, man. Make it happen. I'll be honest with you, you know I'm the kind of leader that once you've got an idea of something you want to do, I'm telling you to run with it. And generally speaking, you know, that leadership I told, let me mention it again for those who haven't heard. When King David went to Goliath, the call was, who's going to go up against Goliath? And David's going, what's the matter with you? Oh, me. Nobody delegated the job to him. He said, isn't there a cause? Oh, I'll do it. Then when he attacked Jerusalem, and they were mocking him from the walls, he said, whoever takes this city, I'll make him the captain of my army. And the guy went ahead and took the city. See, because that's the way I think. I'll be honest with you, don't wait for me to tell you what to do. Do you know what the most powerful, energizing thing is in your life and in this house's life? Is your vision. Your vision is what energizes you. The overall vision is what we need to aim it all at, which is the empty chair. But your vision is what energizes you. I'm not a motivator. I'm not going to come here and I'm not going to be... John Wimber was the same. He said, if it ain't in your heart to do it, I don't know how to get it in there. Because if it isn't in your heart to do it, you're here. Are you with me? You're number 4. You're going to be 80% of our problems. If it's not in your heart, nobody ever once suggested to me that I should preach the gospel. Once I saw somebody preach, I said, are you kidding me? Can I do that? And nothing was going to stop me. And that's what it's all about. And I didn't need to, no, I was commissioned, I was sent. But trust me, I made sure there was something in there to do. Alright, next down. Creativity is demanding. The higher the predictability, the lower the connectability. Now, here we go, guys. Sensitive subject. The higher the